Hi, I'm Fiona Nunan and I'm a Professor of Environment and Development in the International Development Department at the University of Birmingham. In this short presentation, I'll be introducing my research interests. I work on research into the structures and people involved in decision making about how renewable natural resources in low and middle income countries are used and managed. This decision making is often referred to as governance, and my research investigates how these governance systems are working in practice and how they affect the condition of the natural resources. Are they in a good, sustainable condition, or are they degraded or overexploited? And how that governance affects the livelihoods of people who use those natural resources. I particularly work on inland fisheries, though also work on all renewable natural resources, including forests. Research into the governance of renewable natural resources is concerned with an awful lot of issues, and these include questions about who makes decisions about who can use natural resources, what kinds of structures are in place to manage natural resources, who benefits from the natural resources, what kind of rules are in place, where do those rules come from, and how are the rules enforced, and what are the implications for the natural resources and for their livelihoods from that decision making. Different governance systems and structures exist from place to place, but very often they involve local use of the resources, working with government through collaborative arrangements. These collaborative arrangements can create a lot of challenges because of the power relationships between the groups, different objectives and interests they may have, and there being a lack of alternative means of livelihoods for the resource users. My research is particularly focused on East Africa. Between 2003 and 2008, I lived and worked in East Africa, working on fisheries management projects. And following that, I've continued my interest in the region and I've carried out research on Lake Victoria. This map shows the location of Lake Victoria. You can see that it's bordered by three countries, Uganda, Kenya and Tanzania. And Lake Victoria is the second largest freshwater body in the world. And so it's incredibly important for the region in terms of protein supply, income and employment, and revenue for government through taxes and charges. This slide shows a few pictures to illustrate just what the fisheries look like on Lake Victoria. Nile perch, which is shown in the first picture where there is a weighing station there, is the most important export fisheries in the region, and much of the fish is exported to the European Union. From the late 1990s, early 2000s, a system of co-management, this sort of collaborative governance arrangement I talked about earlier, was introduced. And so my research has been concerned with investigating how local norms have made it difficult for women to be involved in co-management, how corruption linked to illegal fishing has undermined the system, and how political interference presents challenges to co-management. My research has informed my teaching, which centres around the long-standing question of how can you improve and protect the environment whilst improving people's lives. This was central to my first book, published in 2015, on understanding poverty and the environment. And as you can see, my other research areas have touched on climate change, and most recently, governing renewable natural resources was an edited volume that came out in 2020. And you can find out more about that book and about my research on the governance of natural resources through this blog. And through that blog, you can reach a lecture that I gave in January in 2020, where you can hear in much more detail about my research interests and how I've investigated those. And that lecture was given as to mark my promotion to professor, and so it's a quite comprehensive account of my research interests. And following that, I also have recorded quite recently a podcast on governing renewable natural resources. And so you can find out a little bit more about what it all involves. So I hope that's given you a flavour of my research and of how our research in IDD ensures that students are informed by research that addresses real world problems and aims to make a difference to people's lives now and in the future.